Microsoft just found malware that turns your PC into a crypto thief and spreads itself without you doing anything. This lightweight backdoor is different because it doesn't need admin access, doesn't trigger antivirus alerts, and specifically hunts wallet files and exchange credentials. It's propagating through network shares right now. The real problem: crypto theft is becoming invisible infrastructure attacks instead of obvious ransomware. This means millions of machines could be compromised, while their owners have no idea their digital assets are bleeding out in
Conclusion. And AI is accelerating that output at a rate no human editorial system was designed to handle. The problem isn't that AI research tools don't work. The problem is that they work too well at mimicking the surface patterns of scientific inquiry while lacking the deep reliability needed for genuine knowledge creation. Overfitted calls this the production progress paradox. More research output does not guarantee faster scientific advancement. In many cases, it may actively slow it down. Here's why. Every AI-generated hypothesis still requires human verification. And according to the newsletter's framing, if a system generates hypotheses at a rate of 100 per hour but each one requires significant human time to validate, you haven't accelerated science, you've just shifted the bottleneck from idea generation to idea filtering. Researchers are already calling this the verification tax. And unlike traditional debt, it compounds. The real breakthroughs don't disappear. They just become impossible to find in an expanding universe of automated noise. Most people think more AI in the lab means faster cures, faster discoveries, faster everything. They're not wrong that the tools are powerful. They're completely wrong about what the bottleneck actually is. And that question of where the real bottleneck lies is about to get much more complicated in Story 2. Before I get into that, I want your hot take on this. Comment below, is AI-generated research a net positive for science, or are we building a mountain of noise that will set real discovery back by a decade? Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because the same dynamic playing out in research labs is playing out inside every major enterprise right now, just with code instead of papers. The push to deploy AI agents across corporate software development has created what Overfitted describes as a hidden technical debt crisis. The core problem is architectural. When a human developer fixes a critical bug, that knowledge propagates through version control, documentation, code reviews, institutional memory. The fix becomes part of the organization's collective intelligence. When an AI agent fixes the same bug, that knowledge disappears into the void. It doesn't update the underlying model. It doesn't prevent the same error from surfacing next week on a different team. You get all the productivity of the fix with none of the learning. Now scale that across an entire enterprise running hundreds of agents simultaneously, and you start to see the shape of the problem. The newsletter frames this as a crisis of collective amnesia. We are building the most productive workforce in history on a foundation of institutional ignorance. And the reason this is particularly dangerous is its invisibility. The problems don't surface as dramatic failures. They compound silently until the cost of AI-generated inefficiency exceeds the benefit of AI-generated productivity. Most organizations aren't measuring that crossover point. Most aren't even looking for it. Which brings us to Story 3, and this one has real money and real geopolitics attached to it. This week's newsletter dropped 3 stories that at first look completely unrelated. Amazon's security research triggered a White House meeting. Anthropic suddenly suspended access to their flagship models. And Meta reportedly lost $2 billion after Beijing exercised what can only be described as veto power over a corporate AI decision. Sit with that for a second. A foreign government's policy decision erased $2 billion of value from an American tech company, not through sanctions, not through tariffs, but through the emerging reality that AI systems trained on global data, deployed in global markets, are now instruments of state-level leverage. Canada's Prime Minister is apparently warning publicly about AI dependence, which tells you that this isn't a fringe concern anymore. It's reaching the level of heads of state. The dot that connects all 3 stories this week is the same. We built these systems for speed and we skipped the infrastructure for accountability. In science, that means no reliable way to separate real breakthroughs from automated noise. In enterprise software, that means no mechanism for AI agents to actually learn from their own mistakes at an organizational level. And in geopolitics, it means corporate intelligence is now state policy, and no one architected a governance layer before the systems went global. Drop your hot take in the comments. Should AI companies be treated as critical national infrastructure regulated like power grids, or does that just hand governments a new tool for control? Here's the thread that ties it all together. The production progress paradox, the agentic fragility crisis, and the geopolitical collision of corporate AI, they are all symptoms of the same root cause. We optimized AI systems for output and forgot to optimize them for accountability. More papers, more code, more capability, but no shared memory, no verification layer, no governance framework that scales with the technology. The newsletter's credibility ratings this week are telling. Google's uncertainty technique rated 45% real because teaching a system to say I'm not sure doesn't fix the underlying hallucination problem. The Bezos artificial general engineer announcement rated 15% real because slapping the word general in front of engineer doesn't solve the fundamental challenges of AI reasoning. The real stories this week aren't the ones with the flashy press releases. They're the structural cracks forming underneath the systems we're already depending on. If you want the full breakdown every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, completely free, I go deep in the overfitted newsletter. Link in the description. No fluff, no hype. Just reality checks on what's actually happening in AI. If this video made you think differently about where AI is actually heading, hit like, share it with someone who works in tech, and subscribe so you don't miss next week when I cover how the verification crisis in AI research is starting to affect pharmaceutical drug discovery pipelines and what that means for the next generation of medicine. And here's the question I want to leave you with. If AI can generate more research than humans can ever verify, and more code than any team can fully understand, at what point does more intelligence actually make us collectively dumber?